Sup you beautiful people. Hope you've had a fantastic day. Welcome back to another new episode of What If Naruto was taken by Yoda and trained to become a Jedi Knight. If you guys enjoy this what if, comment down below and let me know. And go ahead and check out other what ifs in the channel after watching this video. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a like, and also share this video with your friends. So now let's start this video. On board the Pride. 3 days had passed by since the Battle of Fonder, and things had started to escalate from there on. The Separatists, fresh from their first major defeat, fell back into their territories and began a series of hit-and-run tactics. Attacking hyperspace routes and supply convoys, trying to deprive Fonder of supplies and rations. This sort of tactic seemed fit well for the fast and agile Separatist frigates. However, the order had come down from on high that this situation needed to change soon. Bastine is a very strategic location that we cannot allow the Separatists to maintain control of. A hologram of Master Windu briefed the Ayla Secura of the 327th Star Corps, Deepa Billaba of the 108th Elite, and even Peel of the 99th Assault Corps. The Jedi generals all held pretty pensive looks on their faces. So we're to take Bastine. I highly doubt that the Separatists will simply allow us to shove them off the planet and move in. It's got the bulk of their droid factories for the entire sector. Ayla commented as the others nodded. Bastine, at all cost, must be taken. It hosts a large number of massive shipyards, capable of building dozens of warships a week, warships that the Separatists have been using to launch persistent attacks on the hyperspace routes. Notwithstanding is the planet's tremendous reserves of natural ores. However, the primary reason for the importance of this battle is that it lies on a key hyperspace route that sees heavy traffic to the southern outer rim. Windu carried on as Tarkin throated this. I know this route all too well. Well, this whole mess was just starting. I was governor of Iriadu. And I remember having to order cargo ships to stop short of Bastine, circle around at sublight speeds, and then finally make their way back onto the main route. And if the Separatists control it, they could potentially choke the outer rim worlds of supplies from the worlds. They could be forced in to join the Confederacy. Deepa stated as Windu nodded to his former Padawan. Then you're all aware why it is so important we take Bastine from the Separatists as soon as possible. As of now, Master Tachi is engaged at Frisia, and the Chancellor has chosen Naruto to lead the counterattack on Tino. I'm afraid you three are tasked with taking Bastine alone. Windu stated as they all exchanged looks. Admiral Darahan, who had been silent this whole time, took the opportunity to speak up. Master Windu, as you said, Bastine has a large number of shipyards. How are we supposed to take Bastine with only 4 Venators and a handful of frigates and support ships? Ross addressed the concerns that they all shared, but Mace only smiled. I had thought one of you might ask that. Fonda Shipyards has a gift for the 10th Army. Think of it as reward for Naruto rescuing them. 10 additional Star Destroyers are being sent your way, fresh off the assembly line. They should arrive at your current location within the day. Mace could see some of the tension leave their bodies. Do not worry, Master Windu. We will take Bastine. Even stated as Windu nodded and the transmission was cut. The 3 Jedi generals began conversing with their advisors. Ross began to formulate battle plans with Tarkin and Allender, while Bly and Ayla took the lead on strategizing the taking of the planet. They had a deadline of 2 days to prepare and launch their assault. 3 weeks later, Bastine. The siege of Bastine was without question the largest battle in the war to date, as 3 full corps were deployed on the surface of the planet to deal with the Separatist ground forces. While the battle on the surface raged on, the battle above was equally contested. While the 10th Sector Army had deployed what was probably the largest Republic fleet in the galaxy, it was dwarfed by the Separatist armada that outnumbered the Republic fleet 3-1, although over the course of the battle, the Republic had managed to slim the odds down. The battle was heavily stacked against their favor, but they were able to punch through the initial defenses, landing over 100,000 clones onto the surface. Commander, what's the situation? Ayla questioned as she crouched down next to her clone commander, CC-50-52 Bly. Bly brought up his recon visors, and quickly began to report to the general. That so far, our forces seem to be doing well against the droids. Master Peel's flanking maneuver managed to catch their forces by surprise, and with our center advancing up, we can wipe out the droid forces in this sector. That stronghold will be ours before nightfall. Bly reported as Ayla nodded. While they were destroying droids by the tens of thousands in each battle, it mattered little as the droid factories on planet were producing 1,000 more every hour. The further in they pushed, the more resistance they met. Very good. Once this fortress is secure, I want our forces to rest up. We have a long battle ahead of us if we want to take their headquarters. Ayla said with a sigh as she looked up towards the sky. It was filled with multiple warships, blasting away at each other. On board the Vanguard. The Star Destroyer known as the Vanguard was the flagship of Jedi General Deepa Billaba, who was currently on the surface below fighting the droid forces. In her place was Captain Jeff Strow. She was the daughter of a very wealthy businessman on Corellia, but it was clear that she wanted nothing to do with the family business. She chose a different path than her father, and signed up for the Republic Navy as soon as she reached the minimum age. She proved herself capable during the many simulations, and was ready to work her way up the ranks with hard work. But was surprised when she was given officer training, promoted to captain, given command of her own ship, and made part of the Coruscant Defense Fleet, the most boring assignment in the galaxy for a Navy man or woman. It was where careers went to die and where stubborn old men went to retire. She had no doubt that her father had pulled some strings to get her this cushy assignment, and she hated it. He'd been controlling her all his life. Now that the Separatist crisis had escalated into full-blown war, she had been called into active duty. There wasn't anything more her daddy could control, and she loved that. Unificent class approaching starboard bow. The clone officer shouted out as Jess narrowed her eyes. Use the ion cannons to disable it, followed up by a concentrated barrage from our starboard batteries. Drop the shield and attack with full power. Jess ordered as the ion cannons quickly switched targets and started to fire at the incoming droid frigate, disabling its shields and some weapon systems. Fire, she ordered. Their turbolaser batteries hammered the immobile droid frigate. The impacts forced the ship down towards the planet's atmosphere. Without their engines, the ship couldn't reach escape velocity and was caught in Bastine's gravitational pull. With the heavy damage it had already sustained, the ship didn't last long. It was torn in two in a matter of seconds. Jess let out a breath she didn't know she was holding in. That was the second frigate her vessel had to take down alone. Adding it up with the rest of her fleet, the number was up to 6. Tarkin and Wiles' fleets, on the other hand, had taken out 9 or 10 each, and the Pride was currently embroiled in a battle with 4 frigates, and still holding strong. And that was just today. Over the 3-week-long battle, they had taken out at least 100 Separatist ships, although that was counting ships stationed at the 2 star docks they had destroyed, but still. She knew that she wasn't as good as some of the other commanders present at the battle, but she wasn't about to roll over and play the incompetent either. With Ross and the Pride, Ross frowned in frustration even as one of the frigates engaging him began to break apart. The Separatist admiral was competent enough to know how to press his advantage. Ross was completely separated from the rest of the Republic fleet and had to fend off the enemy attacks on his own. The Separatists still greatly outnumbered them, and the enemy admiral knew it, and thus was attacking from all sides. Damn it, I can't think straight with all these moving targets, he muttered. Well, he was a skilled admiral. Thus far he had been dealing with pirates and smugglers in relative low numbers and small crafts. This was the largest engagement he had been in with an actual enemy. These weren't pirates with second-hand tech. These were a well-funded splinter faction of the Republic, with a massive droid army, and first-rate warships, capable of fighting back as much as he could. As he scanned the battlefield, he spotted 2 droid frigates breaking of their attack and began to retreat. He narrowed his eyes at that. Why would they retreat now? Sir, we have incoming ships jumping out of hyperspace. An officer reported as Ross cursed his luck. More droid warships, however. As the ships dropped out of hyperspace, he was shocked to see just what kind of ship it was. Impossible, he muttered. The ship was long, probably the length of a Venator, and it was also comparable in size. It boosted multiple heavy turbo batteries and point defense systems. At the very rear of the vessel, just below the bridge was a large hangar stretching from the port side to the starboard. It seemed that the Separatists now had a vessel in their arsenal that could go toe-to-toe with a Venator. Sir, that Separatist ship is targeting us. Another officer yelled as Ross was broken out of his thoughts. Intensive forward deflector shields. Ross yelled, and just in time as the new Separatist warship fired all batteries. The shields were able to prevent any serious damage, but it soon became clear that this new ship was quite the threat. We have more incoming. Ross rolled his eyes at that, just what he needed. Soon 4 more ships of the same design jumped out of hyperspace. Angle our bow 40 degrees downward, and move 2 of our support ships ahead, and have them switch all power to topside deflectors. When all ships are in position, begin a full power barrage. We need to see how much that thing's shields can take. Ross sighed so heavily that it was almost a growl. This was going to be a tough battle. The toughest battle he'd ever faced, and that fact made him tremble in excitement. With Tarkin and the Conquest, I want a scan of those ships, immediately. Tarkin ordered as a clone officer nodded and turned to his team, getting straight into work. The former Ariadu governor saw the word very analytically. While this made him a great captain for the Republic's navy, it didn't make him the most inspiring leader. Sir, 2 of the droid frigates are trying to encircle us. The clone pointed out as Tarkin hummed. He had known that fact before the clone even pointed out to him. The Separatist admiral was competent enough to exploit their numbers disadvantage. Reverse in full speed. Focus fire on the port side target first. Tarkin ordered as the order was carried out to the gunner. The heavy turbolaser batteries turned to face the droid frigate before sending a barrage of heavy fire towards it. The barrage managed to damage the vessel, but it was still going strong. Tarkin quickly ordered another Venator in his command to circle around the approaching droid frigates and to attack them from the rear. As the battle between warships raged on, thousands of droid fighters were flying all over the place, making life hard for the Republic. Thankfully, they had quite a few corvettes of their own to act as point defense platforms, along with Vice Admiral Weil Hollander. Captain Tarkin. Tarkin was broken out of his thoughts as a hologram of Allender appeared before him. Tarkin raised an eyebrow, wondering what the old admiral wanted. Allender was considered to be one of the best the Republic had, and was also respected throughout its military. While was quite the opposite of he and Ross. Allender specialized in naval warfare, most importantly, starfighter combat. It was one of the reasons why he was chosen for the 327th Star Corps. Yes, Admiral? Tarkin questioned with little interest. Aside from Naruto and Ross, Allender was the highest rung on the totem pole, and would assume command of the entire sector army, should anything happen to them, and also the next in line, should anything happen to Ross and the Jedis in the 10th sector army. The droid forces are concentrating their forces on Captain Strau's flank. While she is holding out well enough, her forces will be overwhelmed if something is not done. Allender stated as Tarkin noticed that the 2 flanking frigates were dealt with. And what do you have in mind? Tarkin questioned once more. If Allender was contacting him, then he must have had a plan. You're out to our left. I want you to push the Separatist right flank and collapse it. With their right flank gone, the Separatist admiral will be forced to either retreat or send more vessels from the center to the right, destabilizing the center just enough for Ross to break through to Strau. Allender explained as Tarkin thought over the plan. What about those new Separatist warships? They're not as easy to deal with as the frigates. Tarkin pointed out as Allender nodded. That is why I am directing 2 squadrons of bombers with escort fighters to support your attack. They will assist you in breaking through the enemy flank. Allender replied as Tarkin nodded. Very well. Tarkin said as the transmission was cut. Have the fleet push towards the enemy, full speed. Tarkin ordered as the Venator, followed by 2 others, began to push their side. However, as they engaged the droid warships on his side, something odd started to happen. They are pulling back. Tarkin muttered as he narrowed his eyes. What was the Separatist admiral thinking? If the right flank pulled back, then the center would be exposed from Republic attack. Tarkin shook his head. Maybe the Separatist admiral wasn't as competent as he had thought. Have one of our Star Destroyers break off and engage the Separatist center. Tarkin ordered, getting a bit bold. Soon enough, the closest Venator to the center broke off, shifting its fire towards the center. Sir, we are getting a priority message from Admiral Allender. The clone officer stated as Tarkin sighed. What was it this time? Well, what is it? Tarkin questioned as the officer looked down at the datapad. It reads, fall back, the Separatists are blocking communications and it cuts off from there. The officer reported as Tarkin frowned. This was unexpected. They weren't blocking their communications until now, but that would mean, fall back immediately, full reverse. Tarkin shouted out as more Separatist warships held in reserve jumped out of hyperspace right next to his fleet. Tarkin's eyes narrowed with the realization. The enemy knew that they were going to push forward and lured him into a trap. Lucrehold Procure. Sir, our flanking fleet has arrived. The droid reported to his admiral, an Neimoidian. The Neimoidian was the color of green that all others were. However, he carried himself humbly in his strides, unlike many others who conveyed an aura of arrogance. His eyes were covered by the data goggles he wore, and were equipped with a rotating scope, connecting him to his flagship's many systems. Good, have the frigates push past the enemy's right flank to box them in. The Neimoidian ordered as the droid complied, sending out the orders. The Neimoidian allowed a smirk to grave his face as he observed the battle carefully. He wasn't a fool, and it showed in his battle strategy. He was going to make use of the superior numbers and the Republic's overconfident officers to win the day. Sir, we have a transmission from Count Dooku. The droid reported as the Neimoidian frowned. What did the Count want during such a pivotal battle? Proceed. The Neimoidian ordered as the droid pressed a few buttons, allowing the hologram of one Count Dooku to appear. Now many would either bow to bend a knee when the Count appeared before them, but not this Neimoidian. To the Count, the man before him was one of his most trusted naval commanders, and very much capable of carrying out his orders down to the last word. Admiral Martuk, I am to assume that the Republic forces are being dealt with. The Count questioned the now named Neimoidian, who in turn nodded as his scope rotated. The Republic has some bright leaders, but they are easily lured into a trap due to their overconfidence. By the next planetary rotation they shall be crushed. Tuk replied as the Count nodded, trusting the Admiral. Very good. However, there are other matters that I need to discuss. Dooku stated as Tuk raised an eye at that. Taking his silence as a go-ahead, Dooku pulled out a holodisk and activated it to show a hologram of a Providence-class carrier destroyer. However, this one was a much larger variant, twice the size of the others, boosting a much larger number of heavy batteries, point defense systems, and had slightly different coloring. This vessel belongs to your new superior officer for the remainder of the battle. He shall be arriving shortly to deal with the Jedi invasion on land, where your colleague has failed miserably. Dooku stated as Tuk frowned. While he was a veteran officer and an excellent commander, the Jedi still presented a problem down at the surface below. However, will this vessel be taking part in the battle? Tuk questioned. It was important for him to know whether this vessel would take part in the battle, so he could adjust his strategy. Dooku shook his head. No. This vessel will only deploy the new general, and then observe the battle from afar. Dooku replied as Toog nodded before he turned towards the battle before him. I am assuming this will be all. He questioned the Count, who nodded, and the transmission cut off. Good, he could focus back on the battle. Set batteries to full power and aim for that Star Destroyer's engines, the one near the center. Once the engines are destroyed, we will pull it in and finish it off. Toog ordered. He had arranged his fleet in a manner in which the shields and the point defense systems overlapped with each other, providing an almost impenetrable defensive line. With Ross frowned as the situation went from promising to god-awful in just the span of a few seconds. Tarkin had become a bit overconfident in his push, and had been lured into a particularly nasty trap. He was now boxed in. With one of Tarkin's Star Destroyers pulled into the enemy kill zone, the captain was left to fight the onslaught of the droid warships alone. Admiral Darhin. Ross was broken out of his thoughts as he turned to look at a muddled hologram of Vice Admiral Hollander, using their backup holo channel, and he didn't look happy. This is about Tarkin, isn't it? Ross questioned. One would say he and Tarkin were friends. If he could call Tarkin that. He liked Tarkin's approach to battle, and he found the man was easy to get along with. Captain Tarkin's in trouble, and I want you to save him. The droid frigates behind him have cut off his retreat. Destroy those frigates so he can fall back. Hollander stated as Ross raised an eyebrow. Aren't I the ranking admiral of the Sector Army? Ross questioned with a slight smirk, intent on using his rank. Hollander narrowed his eyes at Ross. This smartass. I know you were on thin ice with General Uzumaki. The general would defer to my judgment in this case. So, speaking as someone who has the most experience, I am asking you to assist in Tarkin's retreat. While used a stern tone that certainly sounded like he was the one giving orders. Ross gulped slightly. He might be an admiral, but Hollander still had far more experience. It seemed that rank didn't matter much in the 10th Sector Army, given that their general is a Jedi Knight leading a cadre of Jedi Masters. Understood. Ross replied as Hollander nodded, satisfied that Ross obeyed his command. The hologram faded away as Ross sighed. Full power to the deflector shields, we are going to save Tarkin. Ross said, a bit annoyed that he had to bail Tarkin out of the fine mess he had gotten himself into, and just when he had his strategy going. On board the Vanguard, Jess, on the other hand, was now having a much easier time. The Separatist fleet had begun to focus on Tarkin, and so she started playing it safe and avoided drawing unnecessary attention. While her portion of the fleet was engaged with the droid fleet, she noticed that the droid frigates would occasionally break off, leaving openings perfect for a push, but she also recognized that these were attempts to bait them. As soon as they would try to push, the droid frigates that were breaking off would change course to get behind them, and the overall formation would tighten. Clever, but it wouldn't work on me, she thought as she strategized in her head. She wasn't going to be a run-of-the-mill Republic Navy captain that just sat there and ordered her vessel to keep firing on the enemy. No, she was going to do something. This stalemate was getting out of hand, and the droids were slowly thinning down their numbers. She noticed how the droids' warships were overlapping themselves in order to deflect most of the incoming fire. Maybe, she thought as she let a grin worm its way onto her slender face. Have our V-Nators tighten formation. Ready the bombers and fighters. She ordered as the Vanguard, along with two other V-Nators, started to tighten their formation, mimicking the enemy's strategy. Set the forward deflectors and shields to maximum power, flanking speed. She shouted out her order, point straight at the enemy's left flank. The clones obeyed as Jess' fleet broke off from the defensive line. Captain Strow, you are to take. The transmission from Hollander didn't make it as even their backup communications were now being jammed. Jess rolled her eyes. That old man was using traditional tactics. The Separatist admiral was bold and daring. His tactics were designed to fight the unorthodox. While strategy was sound, it wouldn't bring them victory, only cost them many lives and ships. On my mark, tell the bombers and fighters to engage the Separatist vessels. She ordered as her fleet punched through the Separatist left flank, creating a large gap, thus dividing the Separatist left flank into two. Now, she ordered as bombers and fighters emerged from behind the three V-Nators hangars, targeting all surrounding droid vessels. In the span of just a few minutes, she had managed to break the Separatist left flank. On board the Procurer. Sir, the Republic seemed to have destroyed our left flank. A battle droid reported to Toog, who looked surprised by the news. What? Toog questioned as the droid looked down at the datapad. The Republic has broken through our left flank and has started to engage our center. The battle droid reported. Toog frowned at this new situation, but he could easily deal with it. Bring the Providence-class cruisers to reinforce our center left. He ordered. That would be enough to halt the Republic's attack. With Ross had easily shattered the droid frigates that were blocking Tarkin's retreat. However, he didn't retreat as Hollander had instructed. Tarkin, I've got a plan and I need your cooperation. Ross said as he looked at a hologram of Tarkin. Well, out with it. Tarkin ordered as Ross started to send him data neat for the plan. If everything worked out like it had planned, then the droid fleet would be shattered in minutes, and the day would be theirs. On the surface, while the battle in space intensified, the battle on the ground was going smoothly for the Republic. The Jedi were easily able to secure many strongholds and key positions, but none of that mattered due to the sheer number of droids that the factories were producing. They had successfully taken another position and were planning to take the last of the fortress between them and the factories and the mining facilities. It's no use, the path is too narrow. CC22-32, otherwise known as Dragon, commented as they looked at the hologram layout of the map. The next Separatist fortress was guarded the other end of a valley. The Separatists had built twin fortress to guard the entrances from both sides. Then we have no choice. CC8854, a sourpuss of a clone who Naruto had nicknamed as a form of punishment for refusing every other nickname they tried to give him, stated, as he put his gold-trimmed helmet on. The emblem of the 99th Assault Corps was prominently displayed. He was the martial commander for it, after all. This is the last Separatist holdout, and the resistance will be very heavy. Peel said grimly as he looked down at the fortress. The narrow valley wouldn't make things easier. Many were going to die just trying to reach the fortress. This is mad. You all realize that, right? We are walking into a kill zone. Deepa commented, as if she was the only one aware of the threat level, but Ayla shook her head. There's no one way. Going around the valley will take too long, and we will be open to droid ambushes. This is the only way. Ayla proclaimed. They were going to take that fortress, come hell or high waters. Turning to her clone commander, she gestured to him. Have our forces ready. Walkers at the front followed infantry. Have the ATRTS surge forward to break through the enemy lines and harass their positions. Ayla ordered. There wasn't much of a strategy they could use in this situation. Yes, General. CC50-52 Bly replied as he went about to gather the men. Peel and Deepa gave similar orders. They could only hope that their combined attack could break through the droid defenses, but they all knew that victory would come at a high price. The preparations were quickly made as the AT-ATs were moved up at the front lines, while the Jedis walked close behind it. So, where is Siri? And Naruto for that matter. I haven't seen him once since the start of the war. Surely the battle at Tuna would be over by now. I hear he actually managed to get the populace riled up enough to fight alongside him. Deepa questioned the others as they kept walking. She wasn't exactly aware of many things going on across the galaxy at the moment, as their communication lines were still being jammed, so she didn't know the full story. Syria is currently dealing with separatist trading fleets near Frisia. The CIS is concentrating its forces in the area trying to subdue the Incan Corporation. They do make all of our bombers, after all. As for Naruto, he has been protecting our supply lines since the battle at Tuna ended a week ago. If the supplies stop coming, then that means Naruto has failed his objective. We would have to pull out of the battle if that happens. Ayla explained as Deepa nodded in understanding. It seemed like everyone was truly fighting everywhere, even outside of their designated sector. I suggest you ready your saber. Peel stated as he activated his saber just as the separatists began to open fire. Ayla activated her sabers as well, along with Deepa. The three Jedis quickly shot forward, past the AT-ATs, who returned fire at the droid positions. Jedi. Blast them. A battle droid called out as the three Jedis neared the first line of battle droids. The droids leveled their blasters and started to fire at the incoming Jedis. Ayla used her sabers to deflect much of the blaster fire back at the droids as she charged forward. When she finally reached the droid line, she brought one of her sabers down, effectively cutting one of the droids down, before she spun around and cut another one. For the Republic. Deepa rallied their clones as she jumped right into a group of droids, falling back on her mastery of Form 3 to defend as she dispatched the droids closest to her, cutting them down one by one. Peel by contrast was much more boisterous and attacked with extreme ferocity, but equal precision. None of his strikes wasted a bit of energy as the heaps of droid parts stacked up around him. While the Jedi forced their way through, fire from the Separatists' heavy cannons and mounted turrets rained all over the place as the clone regiment being commanded by Bly finally reached the first line of droids, blasting away with their own DC-15 air rifles and heavy weaponry. We have to keep moving. Ayla stated as she charged forward, already going for the next line of droids, composed more heavily of B2 supers, rather than the standard B1s. She would leave the clones to deal with the remaining droids behind her, as she was confident in their abilities. At the Separatist headquarters. As the battle raged on, a very tall figure observed the battle before him, standing over the scrap tactical droid that had managed to blunder throughout the entire Battle of Bestine. He wasn't here to deal with the clones, no, he was here for a different reason. General, the Jedis have broken through the first line. A battle droid reported as the general kept quiet. He took note that the Jedis were engaging the third line of droids, straying a bit too far from their clone comrades. Wordlessly, the Separatist general turned around and started to make his way out of the fortress to face the Jedi. It was time for the hunt to begin. With Ayla charged into the third line of droids, with one more to go as her fellow Jedis did the same. However, as they were cutting the droids down, the droids suddenly ceased their attacks and stepped back quite a bit. The B1s lowered their blaster rifles, and the B2s raised their wrist-mounted weapons. I don't like this. Peel commented as Deepa nodded. The three Jedis simply stood there, their sabers at the ready. What was going on? It was then that they heard clanking, though it wasn't as heavy or loud as the march of the droids, but it was still loud enough to be heard. The droids started to part as a very tall figure walked into their view. Whatever it was tall, taller than the largest droid on the battlefield. The figure wore a cape that covered its body completely. The only thing visible was its face, but it looked more machine than organic. The only reason they knew it was a living creature was because of the visible flesh around its eyes. "Greetings, Jedi." It spoke, the voice heavy and synthetically altered by the mask. Isla narrowed her eyes as she readied her saber. "Surrender," she stated, but the creature merely chuckled at her offer. "On the contrary, I believe it is you who should surrender, Jedi," the creature said, emphasizing the word Jedi with hate. Isla raised an eyebrow at that, but dismissed it. She ran in for an attack with Deepa and Peel coming in from the right and left flanks. If this was the enemy commander on the ground, the defeating him would go a long way with winning the battle. As Isla went in for her strike, the creature quickly activated two sabers, a blue and a green one, blocking both of her strikes. As Isla's eyes widened, a dark Jedi, she thought as she glanced at her two Jedi comrades closing in on both sides of the enemy. No, despite the color of his lightsabers, it would be more logical to assume this was a Sith apprentice to Dooku. Not hesitating further, Isla put more effort into her attack in an attempt to keep the Sith distracted. In doing so, the presumed Sith chuckled. "What's so funny?" she questioned as the Sith pushed back a bit. "That you think you can win?" he replied. In a blink of an eye, the blue saber dropped from his hand and was summarily caught by his Durasteel-clad foot. The unorthodox strike from below nearly took the Twi'lek Jedi's arm off. Isla retreated back into a safe distance as Peel's and Deepa's ambush was thwarted. Again, the mysterious Sith dropped his saber from his hand, gripped it in his foot, and did a high backflip attack that knocked Deepa onto her behind. What the Deepa didn't get to finish her sentence as the presumed Sith pushed his attack, causing Deepa's lightsaber to be thrown out of her hand, before the Sith grabbed her with his metal foot and tossed her, hard, into some nearby rubble. With a hand free, the cyborg attempted to strike at Isla, but she quickly pushed back and leaped backward. Peel tried to retreat, but it was impossible as he was forced to defend himself against 4 lightsabers. He was barely keeping up with the creature that was using both of his sabers to strike him at him. It didn't help that each strike made his hand numb. He must be throwing at least a dozen saber strikes a second. Not even Uzumaki has this much speed and the power he puts behind each attack with only one arm, Peel thought as his hands began to spasm in pain from the rapid strikes. He was quickly starting to become overwhelmed. Isla tried to assist him by attack the cybernetically enhanced Sith from behind. However, in a split second, one of the Sith's arms rotated at an angle which seemed impossible and started to fight Isla, while he kept up his assault against Peel. What is he? Isla thought. He couldn't be a Sith. While she could sense hatred and darkness with him, it wasn't strong enough to have a connection with the Force. While the two fought, Deepa shook her head as she pulled her saber back towards her. Seeing that Isla and Peel were engaged with the 4-armed creature, she changed in once more, intent on striking it down. The creature took notice of this as he grabbed Peel via his clawed foot and threw him towards Balaba. As it did so, he quickly used one of his hands as support while using his other foot to grab Isla and threw her into the pile of 2 Jedi. The creature laughed as the 3 Jedis groaned in pain while standing back up. I was under the impression that Jedi Masters were warriors of the highest caliber. Clearly that is not the case. The creature mocked them as it let out a chuckle, but due to the mask altering the voice, it sounded dark. The Jedis finally stood back up as dropped his cloak to the ground. They got good look at their foe's pearl-white cybernetic body, and their eyes widened. Their enemy was a droid. No, he was more of a cyborg. What are you? Isla questioned, slightly shaken up as the cyborg chuckled. You're Doom. He replied as his 6-fingered arms split along the middle. The 2 lower appendages grabbed more sabers from his magnetic hips and activated them. The cyborg changed forward at blinding speed. Isla's eyes widened as she instinctively blocked a power strike from all 4 sabers, failing miserably to maintain her defense as she collapsed onto the hard ground. Peel and Deepa tried to aid her, but the cyborg kept them at bay with 2 of his blades. As the blue-skinned Jedi Master struggled to defend against his onslaught, the cyborg chuckled madly. I was trained in your Jedi arts by Count Dooku himself. You cannot defeat me. He spoke as he kept up his ruthless assault, giving the Jedi no time to spare. Losing her grip on the saber, Isla began to panic. In her desperation, she did the only thing she could in this situation to save herself. She reached out to the Force and pushed with all her might. With Ross. Any time now, Darhan. Tarkin said to Ross, who rolled his eyes at Tarkin's urgency. Ross smiled as he watched the battle play out. His fleet slowly moved into position. Jess had broken though one of the enemy's flanks, unknowingly helping him greatly. His plan was simple. Instead of retreating with Tarkin, he was going to push past the enemy's right flank, regardless if the enemy survived or not. He had calculated the damage and casualties they would suffer, and Tarkin agreed they were in acceptable range. Once he had pushed past the enemy fleet, he would turn his and Tarkin's combined fleet around and smash right into the droid's center rear. Now? Ross shouted as his and Tarkin's fleet surged forward, heading past the droid warships while firing at them. He had adopted the same tactic that Jess had used by tightening their formations. The flank didn't give chase to them, instead, they closed the gap. Perfect. Ross said as he ordered the Venators around. On board the Procurer. What? Tu clicked in shock. He had thought that the Republic forces on his right flank would have retreated after they had fallen into the trap. It was under that line of thought that he ordered some of the warships to assist the center from the right. But with the Republic at his rear, he knew exactly what they were going to do. Bring the rear guard about. He shouted, ordering the rear guard to quickly face the incoming Republic Venators, but it was too late. The Republic warships were already upon them, firing away at their engines and disabling many of them in the process. Tu grit his teeth and spit in anger. A moment ago he had victory assured, and now he had completely lost control of the situation. Not only that, but the other Republic warships were pushing as well from all sides, closing the pocket that had been created. This caused some of the droid frigates to crash into each other. Hyperdrive status, check the engines. He ordered. It was over, he had been beaten and it was better to retreat now while he could. As he sat back down on his chair, he shifted through the datapad, with information regarding the Republic commanders in it. He matched the insignia on the Venators with the Separatists, the 10th Sector Army. Their commanding general is Naruto Uzumaki. He said to himself as he stroked his chin. He had heard many things about the young Jedi, even before the war had started. If the information he had on the Jedi general was still accurate, then he would be a formidable opponent. He assumed that the enemy leader would have chosen the best of the best for his army. Damage to engines minimal. Repairs complete. The hyperdrive is ready, sir. A battle droid reported as Tugh nodded. Make for Separatist space. He ordered as his flagship, along with Providence-class warships, jumped into hyperspace. He would be back after he had gathered his forces. This was only a temporary tactical withdrawal. He was confident that the droid factories down at the planet could hold out for a very long time, along with the planetary shield generator protecting the main Separatist base. Even if the Republic had complete dominion over Bastinian space, the factories on the planet below had been built right on top of the mining facilities. In a sense, the factories had practically unlimited raw resources to build droids. Send word to the 6th Fleet, reform at the given coordinates for another attack. Tugh ordered. He would be back soon enough, and this time he was not going to fail. With the Jedi, Isla growled as she narrowly dodged another sequence of strikes. She readied her blade for a counterattack, but was forced to dodge a flailing Clawfoot. They had been fighting this cyborg for quite a bit, long enough for the front lines to catch up. All around them droids and clones were fighting. One of the clones got bold and tried to shoot the cyborg, only for said clone to be caught by the cyborg's foot before he was thrown into his brothers. He really liked using those things in battle. This is all too easy. The cyborg said with that maddening chuckle as the 3 Jedi labored to catch their breath. He had been toying with them this whole time, and they weren't any closer to defeating him, no, injuring him than they were in the beginning. This creature along halted their advance as though without them pushing, the clones were forced to take cover and hold. The fortress unleashed thousands of more droids, much to the Jedi's chagrin. However, before the cyborg could do anything further, he stopped as his communicators started to flash. Erg. The cyborg said in annoyance as he pressed a button and turned around, deactivated his sabers, reconnected his arms and grabbed his cloak. Be grateful that I am sparing your lives, Jedi. The cyborg stated as he withdrew, but one could tell the fact that he hated having to leave the scene without killing any of the 3 battered Jedi Masters, despite him having wounded them many times. That was his strategy. To use fear and wage a physiological war within their minds in order to force them into making mistakes. The Jedi considered themselves lucky as the cyborg retreated into the fortress, but they weren't done yet. The droids were still coming, thankfully. The 8s had pushed up far enough to suppress the firing positions located within the fortress, giving the Jedis and the clones enough time to push forward. Incoming. Lai shouted, pointing at the sky as Republic bombers dropped a massive amount of ordnance on the droid forces ahead of them, wiping out the bulk of their vanguard. However, they were forced to turn away as vulture droids swarmed in, shooting several of the sluggish bombers down. Now's our chance. Deepa called out to her fellow Jedi as they nodded and headed straight for the Separatists' position, the clones following quickly after them. While they brought down the doors leading into the stronghold, Ace started to go around the fortress, and started to engage what little number of droids remained on the other side of the fortress. After a few more minutes of fighting, they had finally captured it, but at a heavy price. We lost most of our walkers, nearly 39% of our original strength. Peel trailed off as he sighed. That cyborg was enough to halt their advance and thus causing them so many lives. They would have been dead too if the cyborg hadn't retreated. We can't rest now. We have 2 more objectives to complete. Isla said as she walked up to the top of the fortress, looking across the long path to the factories. The factories, along with the mining facilities below, must be destroyed. If they keep spitting out droids, this battle will never end. Isla stated, point right at it as the others nodded. Then there's the Separatist headquarters located within the area. I suppose that I'll take care of that, Deepa said, assigning herself to take out the HQ. The others nodded as Isla turned to look at the factories once again. And I'll take the factories, she said, picking her objective. Which one of you will need my assistance then? Peel questioned, chuckling a bit. The other two smiled at the joke. These were the few times over the course of the battle they laughed. Actually, I was wondering if you wouldn't mind handling the separatist convoys. Isla questioned as Peel raised an eyebrow before he nodding in understanding. She meant that with their starfleet routed and their ground forces on their back foot, the separatists were no doubt going to evacuate the planet, taking as many resources, weapons, and riches with them as they could. Very well. I'll meet with my knights and prepare an ambush once I receive word he accepted as Isla thanked him. The Republic force divided into their respective corps. The 10th Army quickly split up and moved towards their objectives, with Deepa taking most of their walkers. Isla was left with 2 walkers and her 327th Star Corps. As she took in Master Peel's words she sighed, a bit glad that the knights under her command were on other fields of battle. If they had been here, then she feared that some of them would die at the hands of that cyborg. General, do you really think we can take that out? Bly's question snapped Isla out of her trance as the 327th marched onwards, heading straight towards the factories. Isla hummed as she pointed towards the perimeter of the production facilities. The droids have heavy artillery positions near the factories. If we can capture those cannons, we should be able to turn them around and shell the whole complex, turning the entire area into one big pile of scrap. Bly nodded. A sound plan, but they would have to find a way to the artillery positions first. It was then he heard the familiar sound of artillery fire. Bly briefly panicked that they had been spotted before he noticed the shell's impact far away. Isla, the separatists are shelling my walkers. Can you take out that artillery? Deepa's voice rang through the transmitter. We'll take care of it. Isla responded with an ironic grin as Deepa thanked her. Turning to her clone commander, she pointed to her ear. We follow the sound. She answered the unasked question. Soon, the 327th changed course, following the sounds that got closer and louder as they neared the positions. Droid regiment. Open fire, a clone captain shouted out as a mixed group of battle droids emerged from around the corner. Blast them. The lead droid ordered as they began to open fire. Isla cursed, but was secretly relieved. This number of droids here meant that the artillery positions were probably close by. Keep pushing. She yelled as she, along with Bly, charged into the droids, inspiring others to follow as the 2 AD-RTs provided support. They would encounter tanks every now and then, but the fact that the separatists were only using droids meant that they were getting desperate. The amount of time it took to make a tank was far greater than the time to produce and send out a B-1. As they cut through another group of droids, the artillery positions came into sight. Bly, on me. She called out as Bly nodded. The 2 pushed past the droids and into the enemy artillery positions, and started to clear them. As they did so, the rest of the corps finally caught up to them, and began to clear the positions with them. It wasn't long before the positions had fallen into Republic hands. I want those walkers guarding those paths. Turn these guns, turn around and get firing, quickly. Isla ordered as the clones quickly got to work, grinding the separatist guns around. General. Bly caught her attention as he offered her a pair of macro binoculars. She thanked him as she grabbed them and used them to see her target. Her eyes widened slightly. The number of droids guarding the factor was insane. She was sure that the 327th, along with her, would not survive if they tried to attack the complex head-on. The artillery is ready, General. Bly reported as she nodded before looking back at a massive complex that housed the factories and the mining facilities below it. Fire. She ordered as the guns began to fire, raining down shell after shell, causing the complex burst into multiple explosions. The highly explosive materials within the massive complex caused many chain reactions, causing a large ball of explosion to erupt from the central building within the complex. Keep firing, Isla ordered. After 3 weeks of constant battle, and a near-death experience at the hands of an unnamed cyborg, her patience had long been worn thin. She was intent on making sure that nothing but rubble remained when she was through with that blasted complex. It had cost them many lives to destroy all those droid factories, and it had almost costed them their lives. That's it for us. She muttered to Bly as she lowered herself to the ground, watching the ships above as she lay resting. She had done her part for the battle. It was high time she gave her troops a much-needed and much-deserved R&R. May the Force be with you. She thought as she hoped that Deepa and Peel would succeed in their objectives as well. Thanks for listening. I do hope you enjoyed. If you want the next part of this video, like, subscribe and comment down below, and turn on the bell notification. And also check out other videos that I have created and enjoy. See you in the next video. Peace.